Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're having a wonderful Veterans Day, or as the rest of the world calls it, Remembrance Day. I'd like to sit and speak with you about some of the significance of November the 11th. Because as an American, we're not really taught the significance of the Great War. We learn a lot about what happened and the reasoning for the Second World War and the sacrifices from that, but we're not really fully educated about what was going on prior to and during the Great War, because our involvement as Americans is actually really small. It was from the summer of 1915 or the spring of 1916 to November of 1918. Because our politicians really didn't want to get involved in European matters. And then after the elections, we did. I believe the elections of 1916, we then got involved on ground conflict in Europe. A lot of things had actually had changed from the Victorian era style of fighting conflicts to what would now be known as modern military tactics. You saw the development of machine guns being employed, to understanding what combined arms combat is, while using, having forward observers call in artillery strikes or mortars on pre-designated positions, and then having your infantry follow behind as those barrages, what is known as a walking barrage, move in on enemy positions. Gas warfare. There was an aerial conflict. It was the first war that actually used the major powers each had their own air forces that actually had, aerial fights. They weren't just used for observing the battlefield or doing bombings, which they did do, but you saw those tactics being developed and employed properly, and the counters to those tactics being employed faster. It all started with the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand in the Bosnian city of Sarajevo by Gavrilo Princip, who was a young Yugoslavian national, on June 28th, 1914. So within 30 days of that assassination, the world was getting ready to be pulled into a very long and drawn out and costly war that we as a global community are still feeling the ripple effects from that war. We saw the fall of the Ottoman Empire. We saw the Russian Revolution start in 1917. Austria-Hungary got separated and became separate states. Germany. Well, Germany did Germany things, and we know how that ended up about 30-something years later. 32 years later, I think, is when a lot of that stuff started again up in Europe. There was also wars in between, like the Spanish Civil War, which is very, again, not really taught in America. But I'd like to read a passage from First World War Poetry, edited by John Silkin, The poem I'm going to read is from a Siegfried Sassoon. It's called Counterattack. We gained our first objective hours before, while dawn broke like faces with blinking eyes. Pallid, unshaved, thirsty, blinded with smoke. Things seemed all right at first. We held their lines. With bombers posted, Lewis guns well placed, and the clinks of shovels deepening shallow trenches. The place was wrought with dead, green, clumsy legs, high-booted, sprawled and grovened along the saps, and trunks face down in the sucking mud, wallowed like trodden sandbags, loosely filled, naked, sodden buttstocks, mats of hair, bulge, clotted heads slept in pristine slime, and then the rains began. The jolly old rain. A yawning soldier knelted against the bulk. Staring across the morning blare with fog, he wondered when the almonds would get busy. Then, of course, they started with 5-9s traversing, sure as fate, and never a dud. Mute in the clamor of shells, he watched them burst, sprouting dark earth and wire with gusts from hell. While posted, giants dissolved in drifts of smoke, he crouched and flinched, dizzily with galloping of fear, sick for escape, loathing the strange horrors and butchered fantastic jesters of the dead. An officer came blundering down the trench. Stand to, men, the first step. He went on, gasping and brawling. First step, counterattack. Then the haze lifted, bombing on the right, down the old sap. Machine guns on the left. Stubbly figures loomed out in front. Oh Christ, they're coming at us. Bullets spat, and he remembered his rifle, rapid fire, and started it blazing wildly. Then a bang. Crumped and spun him sideways, knocking him down to grunt and wiggle. None heeded him. He choked and fought the flapped veils of smothering gloom. Down and down and down he sank and drowned, bleeding to death. The counterattack had failed. I hope you all take a moment and remember and understand that we will always constantly be standing on the shoulders of giants. I hope you all have a wonderful day.